Thanks for joining us, everyone. I think a few more people are still joining, but while we wait for those people to join us, just to let you know that this session is being recorded. So if I can ask everyone to stay muted and to keep their cameras off, that would be fantastic. And when we get to questions, you'll be able to put your questions in the chat. Thank you. Okay, I think we'll make a start. So good afternoon. Thank you for coming to this talk about studying history at UCL. My name is Dr. Rebecca Jennings. I'm the admissions tutor at UCL History, and I'm also a historian of gender and sexuality in modern Britain and Australia. I'm joined this afternoon by Nisha. Nisha, if I could ask you to just briefly introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Nishtha. I'm an international student studying history, obviously at UCL. I'm a second year student, and I'm interested in military history.
Thank you. So what we're going to do this afternoon is I'm going to talk briefly for about 20 minutes, just to give you some general information about why you might want to study history, why you might want to study history at UCL. And then we'll go to a Q&A session. So, so if you have any questions that come to you while I'm talking, please feel free to add them into the chat. And then we will try to answer those questions for the remainder of the session. Okay. So for those people who are just arriving, as I just mentioned before, this session is being recorded. So if I can ask you to keep your microphone and camera off throughout the session, but please do add any questions in the chat as you think of them. Okay, so I'm going to cover three main things in my talk. Firstly, I'm going to explain to you why you should study history at university, why it's a great subject to study. And then I'm going to talk to you about the structure of our history degree here at UCL, just to give you a bit more information about how we approach history. And thirdly, I'm going to tell you why you should choose to study history at UCL, why we think UCL is a great place to study. So as I said, I'm going to speak for about 20 to 25 minutes, and then there'll be time to ask questions at the end. So why study history? Well, firstly, there are a number of romantic intellectual reasons why you might want to study history. Firstly, history gives us a complex, sophisticated understanding of the world that we live in. It does this in three main ways. You can study the history of the contemporary world directly. So for example, my colleague Nate Morris teaches a module called Cops, Cartels and Cash Crops, the drug trade in the Americas 1900 to the present. You can also study contemporary problems in long-term historical perspective. So another of my colleagues, John Sabapathy, teaches a module called Emergency History, a Natural History of Humanity for the Present, which looks at humanity's relationship with the environment over a much longer term, from prehistory to the present day. But even if you're studying something which has no obvious relevance to the present, you still gain a sophisticated understanding of how social, cultural, economic, and political factors interact to produce historical continuity and change. And I think this really enables you to think seriously about the underlying forces that shape the world that we live in. So it helps you to look at the world in a different way. Secondly, history allows you to explore the world through space and time. Part of the appeal of studying history, I think, is that it allows you to encounter times and places that are radically different to our own. This is obviously an interesting thing to do in its own right, but it also gives us a sense of the contingency of the present and of the political and social and economic structures that we take for granted in our society today. So in other words, you'll quickly come to realize that there's nothing inevitable about the prevailing political, social, or economic situation of any given society. And in this respect, studying history can be a spur to political engagement in the present. It can make you more of an active and engaged citizen of Britain and of the world. And the third reason is that history is a truly interdisciplinary subject. Historians are like magpies. They like to steal the best bits of neighbouring disciplines and to apply them in their teaching and research. So my colleague John Sabapathy, whose environmental history course I mentioned before, draws as much on the disciplines of sociology and anthropology as he does on history in his work. In my own teaching, I incorporate elements of queer studies, feminist theory, literary criticism, law, and psychology, both in the teaching that I do and in my own research. Historians have to move between disciplines because they need a range of different tools to analyse the diverse sources that they use. So the kinds of sources that you can expect to engage with on a history degree includes not just a wide range of written texts like novels, memoirs, letters, government documents, but also non-textual sources from films, photographs, oral history interviews, to material objects like pots, buildings, monuments. And so there's a huge range of different types of source material that we work with as historians, and each of those require a different set of skills to really analyse them. So those are the kind of romantic intellectual reasons why you might want to study history. I'm going to also give you some hard-headed practical reasons. So the skills that you learn as a historian are highly valued by a wide range of employers. As a history graduate, you'll be somebody who's able to make sense of large volumes of complex and sometimes contradictory evidence. You'll be adept at analysing sources critically, and also will make you a better writer, a better reader, and a better speaker. These are valuable skills to take into the workplace, and that's reflected in the diverse range of jobs that history students go on to do after graduation. And I've got a list here of some of the things that our UCL history graduates have gone on to do after their degrees. And you'll see there's a huge range of different types of jobs that people have gone into. It's a really versatile degree. So what is it like? What's the structure of our degree program at UCL? Well, in the first year, the first year of our degree course aims to do three things. Firstly, we want to help you to make the transition from school to university level study. And we have two modules that are specifically geared towards doing this. The first is writing history, which teaches you the practical reading, writing, and source analysis skills that you will need to succeed at university level. And the second module is approaching history, which introduces you to the big concepts and categories that historians use to analyse the past. And in addition to these courses, we also have a dedicated tutor for transition and welfare, whose full-time role is to provide pastoral support and help to smooth the transition from school to university. And the second thing that we do in our first year is that we give you a broad overview of a particular subject over a long period. And we do this through what we call survey courses. We've got 17 different survey modules running next year. And I've put a selection of these up on the screen. But as you can see, the options available cover a huge range of subjects, from Bronze Age states in the ancient Middle East to the contemporary history of the United States. The third thing that we aim to do in the first year is to get you engaged in an original research project right from the moment that you arrive. And we do this through a module called Making History, which is designed to get you thinking in new ways about the process of constructing history, from initial evidence gathering to the dissemination of findings to public audiences. And so the idea is that right from the start of your degree, you won't just be reading history that other people have written, but you'll actually be doing the kind of work that professional historians do. So on Making History, students work in small groups on projects that draw their source material from museums, libraries, archives, monuments, and other public spaces in London. And they then present their findings in presentations and in a piece of public history, such as a podcast, an exhibition, a mobile app, or a blog. And on the screen here, I've got some examples of some of the projects that this year's Making History students worked on. And as you can see, again, there's quite a range of different topics that people have explored. Okay, so in the second year, the first big change that happens as you transition from the first to the second year is that you become more specialized in your research interests. So for example, a typical subject for a first year survey module might be the history of the Cold War. Whereas if you were studying that subject in the second year, you might approach it from a particular angle. So for example, my colleague Ian Stewart teaches a second year thematic seminar called The Cultural Cold War, which examines artists, writers, musicians and intellectuals sought to influence public opinion during the Cold War. The other change that happens in the second year is that you start to become a more independent researcher. We help you to develop this independence with a module called a research seminar. So what makes these modules different from the other taught modules is that instead of answering a set essay question, which are given to you as part of the course design, with a research seminar, students have to formulate their own research questions and write a 5,000-word essay on that subject. So there are a few examples on the screen of the types of research seminar modules that you can take. And within the framework of that module, which is focused on a particular period or theme in history, you can pick a specific topic or a set of sources that you're interested in and develop your own question around that. So what's new in the third year is firstly that you'll study what's called a special subject. The aim of these modules is to give you a real mastery of a particular topic based on really extensive research with primary sources. It's taught in classes of no more than 10 students, so they're small groups. And there are some examples of some of the special subjects up on the screen now. And the second big development in your third year is that you'll write a dissertation. So often this will be related to your special subject. The special subject will provide a kind of contextual framework and also skills training that will help you to approach your dissertation. The dissertation is an original piece of research of about 10,000 words in length. So the equivalent of an article in a scholarly journal. And this is really the culmination of your degree. It's the moment when you really become a historian in your own right, and it's an opportunity to really get to grips with a particular aspect of history that you're really interested in. So that's the structure of our degree program. So why choose to study history at UCL? I'm just going to give you a few reasons now why we think UCL is a really special place to come to study history. And the first is that we offer unparalleled chronological and geographical range in terms of the modules that our undergraduates are able to study. Our modules span about 5,000 years of history and cover every continent of the planet. So in the space of a week, you might move between ancient Mesopotamia, early modern England, and the Trump presidency. And secondly, we also offer our students a lot of choice in terms of determining the contents of their degree. So if you want to customize your degree with a primary focus on a particular period or a particular region, then it's possible to do that. UCL history students are also eligible to apply for modules taught at other departments within UCL and at other institutions that are part of the University of London, for example, King's, LSE, the School of Oriental and African Studies. And in addition to that, we also offer a good range of year abroad options. So if you want to spend a year studying at a university overseas, that's also an option. And thirdly, you'll be taught by people who are world-leading experts in their fields. One of the things that makes UCL history stand out is that all of our academics teach, and all of our teaching is driven by our research. Academics design their modules around the research that they're currently doing. So it's really cutting edge teaching. It's in teaching the undergraduate modules on offer in our department that we first work through the ideas and sources that go into our publications. So week by week throughout their degrees, our students really are working at the absolute cutting edge of historical research in their study, in their subjects. And they're doing this in small classes with lots of one-to-one support from academics. So our class sizes are typically no more than 15. We give one-to-one feedback on every piece of written work. All students are also given a personal tutor. This is an academic who works with you throughout your degree to offer support and advice on any aspect of your work or on any personal issues that might be impacting on your studies. All students on our 3-year degrees will have the same tutor throughout their time with us, so that you can develop a really good working relationship with that person. And that's really important because it means that not only can that tutor support you through your degree, but it also means that they can write really powerful, well-informed references for you once you're applying for jobs, internships, or further study. And the fourth reason is that we're a friendly and supportive environment. We're supportive because of the personal tutoring system that I was just talking about. We also have a dedicated departmental tutor who's responsible for student welfare. And because each stage of the degree programme is carefully designed to help you transition firstly from A-level to degree, and then to become an independent researcher in your own right. So we make sure that you have the skills that you need at each stage. UCL History is a friendly department because we really encourage students to get to know one another from the moment that they arrive. We have a program of events in the first week to help you to get to know people and to make friends. We also have an active and extremely popular history society, which is run by students, which organises a variety of trips and social events throughout the year. And the staff are also friendly and approachable. In addition to scheduled essay feedback meetings and personal tutorials, all staff run weekly drop-in sessions where students can come and talk about their work. So if you have any kind of questions about a module that you're taking, you can go and see the tutor during that drop-in session and talk it through. So the last reason I want to give you for coming to study with us is that Bloomsbury, the part of London where UCL is based, is a historian's paradise. That's because you're within 10 minutes walking distance of some of the most important libraries, archives, galleries, and museums in Europe. We're 2 minutes from the Wellcome Collection, which is the world's biggest museum and library devoted to the history of medicine. We're 5 minutes from the British Museum. We're 10 minutes from the British Library. And that's really just the tip of the iceberg. There are all sorts of smaller specialist cultural institutions within a stone's throw of UCL. So I think there really is nowhere better in the UK to come and study history than with us at UCL. So what do you need to know if you want to apply to us? Well, there's lots of information on our web pages about the application process, but I'll just briefly tell you about the entry requirements. So if you're applying through A-levels, Our standard offer is 3 A's, one of which needs to be history. If you're applying through the Access UCL scheme, then the offer would then be ABB with an A in history. And you can find out more about the Access UCL scheme on our web pages. If you're applying through International Baccalaureate, we're looking for 38 to 39 overall, or 34 with the Access UCL scheme, and a score of 18 to 19 points in 3 higher level subjects, including a grade 6 in history, and no score lower than a 5. If you have any questions about that, feel free to put them in the chat, or as I say, there's lots of detailed information on the web pages about that. Okay, so that's me for now. I'm going to finish this presentation and open up for you to ask any questions that you might like answered about history at UCL. Okay, so I think we have a couple of questions coming through.
So our first question is it possible to study history with French?
Yes, it is. So yeah, we do have a history with a modern language degree program, and you would, if you were taking that that degree, you would have 30 credits of the 120 credits in each year would be either in the language or in the literature or culture of that country. So yes, again, there's more information on our web pages specifically about that degree program, but yeah, absolutely. And we have a lot of students who do that, and we do encourage people to think about developing their language skills as well alongside their history ones, because they're important skills to have as historians. So yeah.
Our next question is, in taking a year abroad, what would you be studying whilst you're there?
So if you if you study with a year abroad, you would be based in one of a number of institutions overseas. The institutions change each year, so you would need to look in the year that you were going to be doing it to see which institutions were available. But we have arrangements with universities across the world, and when you're there, you spend a year studying the courses that students at that university take. So we don't send you with work to do. You fully experience what it will be like to be a student at that institution, because we feel that really helps you to get a sense of a different cultural and educational environment, which is a really valuable thing to do.
Our next question here, can you study both ancient and more modern history modules?
Definitely, yes, you can. We have a huge range of modules that you can choose from, which range from ancient to modern history, and you can specialize in any particular period, or you can just try out a whole range of different topics. Usually when people join us in the first year, your personal tutor might encourage you to try something that you haven't tried before, because often people find that they think they love a particular period because they've done quite a lot of it at school, but when they come to university, they discover there are so many other fascinating things that they never learned about, and if you don't try them, you don't know. So we encourage you to mix up your modules as much as you want, but also you're very welcome to specialize if that's what you want to do.
What about history with law?
So other joint degree programs are not administered by history, and you would need to look at the relevant web pages to find out more information about that.
Next question, how many specialist subjects are on offer for third year?
Special subjects?
Yeah.
I can't tell you the exact number off the top of my head, but again, it will probably be around kind of 15 to 17 different modules, something like that. It varies each year, but in fact, it's probably more than that. It might be closer to 20 because we ensure that the class sizes are capped at 10 students per group. So we do have quite a high number of special subject modules, and again, a huge range for you to choose from.
How is the course assessed?
A special subject course?
No, in general.
Or in general, the whole degree. Okay, so we have a mix of different assessments. So some modules are assessed by exam. In recent years, we've moved away from face-to-face exams to take-home exams, where the exam paper is released online, and you have usually sort of 48 to 72 hours to complete it and upload it online. We also assess using coursework essays, which are typically sort of 2,500 word essays. But then we also have a range of other forms of assessment. So we encourage students to develop their skills in public history through doing podcasts, blogs, kind of thing. And yeah, some modules have other kind of specialist forms of assessment. So each module might have a different kind of assessment, but you will find out what that would be when you're making your module choices. So if you have a particular type of assessment that you like or that you don't like, there is some scope to try to pick your choices around those. But although I'm afraid it'd be quite hard to avoid coursework essays and indeed exams to a certain extent as well.
How many contact hours would you expect to have in a week?
So in your first year, your contact hours are about 8 hours in a week, and in your first and second year, and then in the third year, it's more like 6 contact hours. But that's, when I say contact hours, I'm talking about actual teaching classroom time. In addition to that, as I said, you have one-to-one feedback sessions with tutors every time you submit a piece of assessment, to talk through the strengths of what you've produced, and also think about things that you might want to think about doing differently for next time. You also have drop-in sessions where you can come and talk to tutors about the module that you're taking. So for example, the modules that I teach, which involve coursework essays in particular, I encourage all the students to come and talk to me about their essay before they start writing. So usually around the point that they're planning the essay, so that we can really think through their ideas for how they're going to structure the essay. So there's quite a lot of that kind of one-to-one discussion that goes on as well, and particularly when you're doing your second year research seminar or your final year dissertation, you spend quite a lot of one-to-one time with your supervisor, getting really kind of personalized advice and feedback on the work that you're doing. And then we also encourage students to do group work. So quite a few modules have group work built into the sort of preparation for your weekly seminar. So you'd be encouraged to kind of meet up with other students and do some of that kind of preparatory work together.
Our next question: how are GCSE results weighed during the application process?
So we focus on A-level or baccalaureate results rather than GCSE results. So that's less of a concern for us.
What restrictions are there on outside modules?
And so you can take modules at institutions within the University of London. So those would be King's, LSE, SOAS, Queen Mary. Yeah, so there are quite a lot of options, and there are no restrictions on you know, your module choice, you're allowed to take one module in each year, which is outside of UCL.
Is approaching history in year one looking at historiography?
Yes, yeah, it's looking at kind of the sorts of debates that historians have around the sort of big questions that historians are engaged with in their work. So yes.
Next question, what is the admissions process like?
So again, this is something that we have lots of information about on our webpage. We ask you to write a personal statement, which is, or perhaps this is something that you can talk about a bit, Ishta?
Yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm. So I think for me, the admissions process is mainly like, I thought UCL was a very ambitious choice for me. Like it was at the top of the list. And you have to, like, as Rebecca said, you have to submit a personal statement. In terms of the personal statement, I would say make it, as the word suggests, make it personal and like make it a reflection of your identity. The reader wants to know why you are interested and what you will bring to the table. So more than, just like beating around the bush and trying to like put ticks to put ticks on a checklist that usually people tend to do. I think UCL history really appreciates diversity and something new, a new perspective. So bring that, and you'd have to submit it by December or January, I think. Like that's the latest time, and you'll get, like, I got to know back, like UCL got back to me by March, I think. And then obviously, as the British system goes, they give you a conditional offer, and once your results come in, then your unconditional offer comes in. Yeah, does that sound okay?
That's great. That's great.
Next question, is there any wider reading you can recommend for this course?
So we do really, we just encourage you to read any historical material that you're interested in. And it is something that we talk to students about when you first arrive. You will have a meeting with your personal tutor, and your personal tutor will sort of try and get to know you a little bit, learn about your interests, try and help you to think about what you might be wanting to do in that first year. And one of the things that's part of that conversation is just to sort of see if there's anything that you've been reading over the summer that's been of interest to you. So there is nothing that we say, oh, you should read this before you start, but we are interested, I think, as Nishta was saying, we're really interested to find out about you as an individual and what your interests are. So read as widely as you want to in any form of history, and we would love to hear about it.
For your abroad degree, do you have to decide? For your abroad degree, do you have to decide in your UCAS application, or can you decide when you're at UCL later?
There is a possibility to transfer between degree programs once you start. There is a process for that, and obviously we cannot guarantee that there's going to be a space on the program that you want to transfer to. So if you know in advance that you definitely want to take history with a year abroad, it's better to just apply for that program to start with. But that's not to say that if you change your mind once you've arrived, it's not something that you would hopefully be able to do.
I'd like to add something there. So I initially enrolled with history with a year abroad because I think, I thought it would be a great experience going somewhere. But in my second year, I had the realization that this is 3 years abroad for me, because I'm an Indian student. So you can always like change your degree from history with a year abroad to general history, if that
Absolutely.
might help.
Yeah, it works both ways. So you can, you can drop the year abroad if you want to, or you can add it in afterwards. So long as there's space on the program. Yeah, absolutely.
Is there a way to see a full up-to-date module list, or how often is the list changed?
So it does change every year. not radically, just that we have different, some years staff are on research leave for that year, going away to work on their own independent research. And so their module might come off for that year. We might have new staff joining us who put up new programs. Also, we don't teach, as academics, we don't teach the same modules every year. So we have a sort of portfolio of modules that we develop, and we'll teach some of them one year and then a different selection of them the next year. So it is a bit of a rolling program. And yeah, you can see those module options on our web pages. So so yeah, I encourage you to have a look at the UCL history. If you just look at the under undergraduate students, you'll be able to see the current module options.
Our next question here is the History with a Modern Language course the History with a Year Abroad course? I ask as I have not been able to see the History with a Modern Language on the UCL website.
No, it's not. It's a different one. So I will we will try and find the link for you for that and put it in the chat.
Our next question, does the ancient history degree just focus more on the ancients?
Well, so yes, we do encourage you to focus more on ancient history, but again, there is that option to take some modules that are outside of ancient history. So, but yeah, it's expected that if you apply for an ancient history degree, you are going to specialize more in ancient history.
Our last question here, what are the things to avoid while writing a personal statement?
Did you want to take that one? Oh,
yeah. So when I was writing my personal statement, I went to the UCAS website and they said, start with a quote and like, you know, all of that. But I don't think there's a generic mold to fit. You should just put yourself on paper. Like I did an internship at a museum in India, and that's how I started. And like how that that motivated me to study history, because I could look at different perspectives. So I would say integrate your experiences, like what you've done to prove that, you know, you're interested in history. Then integrate into that how, like, you know, what has interested you, why you initially chose history, because making a commitment to a subject at a university level is a big deal. So I would say justify your choice, and maybe state, you know, you would bring this to the table and why you would make a good student and why you would add to UCL.
Yeah.
Is there anything that I missed?
No, that sounds great. And I think, yeah, I think absolutely. I mean, I think the only thing to avoid is to not put your kind of personal interest in there, to just kind of repeat things that other people have said, because what we're interested in is you and why you're interested in history, what kinds of history you're interested in, and yeah, exactly, as your kind of how that relates to your personal experience, what drew you to history. So yeah, because it is a commitment to spend 3 years studying one subject, and it's good to know that that's a subject that you're really interested in before you start it.
Another question, could you repeat what you specialize in? I think they're asking for that.
Yeah. So I specialize in the modern history of gender and sexuality. So I teach courses on how ideas about gender and sexual identity and sexual practices have changed over time. I mostly specialize in the 20th century in Britain and Australia, but I also both research and teach transnational history. So I'm interested in how people and ideas move across national borders, and how they develop in different ways in different contexts. And my research is in LGBTQ history, particularly in the post-war period.
Does the department do career support, or is it managed by the university?
Do you have experience of this that you want to talk about? Yeah, go on.
So you could always, I think it's both. The amount of support you get in everything in this department is unparalleled. You could talk to your personal tutor and they'd be able to direct you to the best person. Or you could in the beginning of your first year, you have something called transition mentoring scheme, where you'd be assigned to a second or a third year who'd be able to support you through your first few days at UCL. And they're going to be there, and you could always get back to them, or email them or text them and get to know more. But essentially, there's a UCL career service that's essentially managed, and UCL history department has a special advisor at the careers team. So you could send them an email, they give you regular updates. The UCL history department organizes events regularly, which you could attend. So I think you'd be really well supported in terms of careers advice.
Yeah, and just to add to that, we have a really good relationships with our alumni. So we often invite former students to come back and give talks about the careers that they have gone on to develop, just to give you a sense of the sorts of possibilities of what you can do with a history degree. And as I was saying in the talk, they're very diverse, the possibilities of what you can do, because history gives you skills which can be used in all sorts of different ways.
Is there an option for a placement year rather than a year abroad?
No, we don't do placements as part of our degree programs at the moment.
I would just like to since there are no questions here, I'd like to just talk about moving to London and an international student perspective.
That would be great.
So I think UCL is home. I have found myself here more than I found myself in the 18 years I spent in India. And that's just because how liberal the environment is here. They let you be who you are, and there are no restrictions, boundaries, or labels to define you by. I think London is an amazing city, and it brings out the best in you. The history department, I've made the best connections with people and met the best professors. So much that you could share things that you could not even share to your parents, who you might be most intimately connected with. You make friends from all over the world, and that's the reason why I chose London. London, so I was considering between going to Canada for my undergraduate studies, or coming to London. But I think the best thing about London is there is history all around you. And I think you imbibe a lot from that. You absorb so much, because the making history module that Rebecca mentioned in your first year, you actually go on site visits to the particular, you go see the Elgin marbles in the British Museum, or go to Trafalgar Square. So you actually you experience how it is to live and breathe history. And for me, that was the biggest thing, that because I was so in love with the subject, I am still in love with the subject. There could be nothing better for me. So just a little insight into how I felt. And obviously the apprehension's there, because you're moving places. Even if you do stay in London, you'll still be moving mental gears, and shifting to university can be difficult. But the best part is there are people to always help you out, and they have your back always.
That's great, thank you. And I think that's true. I think we have people who come to study with us from all over the world, and from such different backgrounds. And I think it's a real strength of the department. And it also means that we're very aware that everybody's coming with a different experience and a different expectations. And we love that. It's what enriches our courses and our department. And but it also means that we do try very hard to make sure that people have an opportunity to get to know people, and to settle in, and to find their way around. And I think, I also think that's one of the great strengths of this department, having worked in other places as well, that it is a really friendly place and a really supportive place.
What sort of accommodation is on offer at UCL?
So I can do a quick answer to this, but you might have more that you could add to this. But so in your first year at UCL, the university guarantees that you can have a place in student accommodation, and we have a variety of halls around London. And then often people will then move out into sort of private accommodation with other students. But this might be something that you can speak to more.
So I think being in UCL halls is one of the best experiences you'll ever have, because you'll make friends outside your department as well. But obviously, as Rebecca said, you'll be assigned UCL halls. There'll be emails. Please regularly check your emails, because all the information will be there. But the furthest accommodation that's the furthest the accommodation is from campus is like, I think, a half an hour walk. So it's in and around Bloomsbury and Zone 1. So, you can easily get to know the place and like learn how, London works. So I think that's one of the best parts about UCL. And you can choose which price range works for you, and they'd allot you a place according to that. So it's not that expensive since it's student halls as well. So our next question here is around how many places are available each year in comparison to the number of applications?
Well, so this is actually my first year as admissions tutor. I haven't yet done the numbers game in the summer. We do have a high number of applicants, but we do our best to accommodate everyone who's able to meet our entry requirements. But I can't tell you the exact ratio, I'm afraid, of applicants to offers.
Around how much would you say it costs to live in London for a year? Would you like me to answer that?
Yep, that would be great.
So usually the tenancy in student halls is for 9 months or 45 weeks or 52 weeks, depends on your contract. But I can tell you like a weekly cost. So that's around, that can be anywhere from 160 to 200, 250, 300 pounds, depends on where you choose and what room size you choose to live in. Right now, I think I'm paying 5,000 or 6,000 pounds a year. So it's not too bad, but obviously London is one of the biggest, like one of the most popular cities in the world. So rent is a little expensive, but I think there is something called a UCL calculator, finance calculator. If you just Google that, that'll give you like a rough estimate of what the costs of living in London might be, because there's accommodation, there's groceries, there's transport, all of that. So I think the calculator was really helpful for me when I was like planning. Yeah,
that's a great tip, thank you.
We don't really have any other questions in the chat. If anybody has any questions. Does the history course allow you to defer for a year?
I think the answer to that is yes.
Are there any entrance tests or examinations?
No, so the entrance qualifications are based on A levels or international baccalaureate. So we don't set our own entrance exams. No.
Are there any interviews?
No, we don't. No.
What sort of support is there for getting a career after you finish your degree?
So as we mentioned, we have a careers advisor we have a member of academic staff who also puts on a kind of program of events around careers and invited speakers through the year. The university also has a careers service, but also it's the sort of thing that you can have conversations with your personal tutor about, and they will be able to advise you or to point you towards other resources that the university has around that. And also, as I mentioned in my talk, personal tutors play a really important role later on in writing references and so on as well. So so often in the sort of the year after you've studied with us, you will find that you're in contact with your personal tutor quite a lot, asking for references and so on. So that's also something that, you know, we stay in touch with our former students to support them through that process of applying for jobs afterwards.
Do you still need to have a foreign language at GCSE to apply to UCL?
That is a very good question, which I don't know the answer to off the top of my head. But if you wanted to email me afterwards, you can find me on the UCL history web pages, and I will check the answer for you and get back to you on that one.
That's the last question we have so far.